Hello there, this is Daniele from Two Chefs, and in this video I'm going to show you how you can use character creator characters with Atoms Crowd. So as you can see here, I've already created a character and I've loaded the default pose onto it. It's important that when you export your characters from character creator, they are in T-pose if you want to use all the new features that we have done for this specific workflow. So at this point, when you have your character ready and in T-pose, you can convert it to game base, or you can just export it straight with the FBX exporter. Although it's important that you use install-load and you merge the materials. And this is because in Atoms we don't support multiple materials per geo. You can export, of course, the current pose, mesh and motion is fine. And then you can just click export. And here I've already created some FBXs, but for now let's just export this character. Okay, so now let's go to Maya. Okay, so once you're in Maya, you can open the Atoms menu and go under Assets and then Reallusion Character Creator Importer. And this will let you import the FBX that we've just exported. So I'm going to open it. This is the name that we're going to use for the agent type. So I'm just going to leave it untouched and I'm going to press Import. What this will do, it will actually register this character as an agent type inside Atoms. And it will use the same FBX as for the skeleton and for the geometries, for the skin geometries. So if now I go in the Atoms UI, you see that basically you have the woman base here. So what we've just imported with the Reallusion. There is one thing to know, when you use FBX files inside Atoms UI, it's always best to close the viewport to keep an interactive experience. If you keep it open, things will slow down considerably. So yeah, for this video, I'm gonna keep it closed. So as you can see here, we have now the path to the FBX and also this filter, this new filter, and the same thing for the skin. So if now I create an agent group and I create a grid layout, I can select the woman, say I want to see the skin, and it's all with the textures and that are contained in the FBX. Now, of course, the agent is in T-pose, which is the pose that we exported, but we can also apply some animation. So what I've done already is I've created in that folder that I showed you earlier some basically characters and exported them as FBX. So they are all in T-pose, and I'm going to use each one of these geometries as a variation geometry. So I'm just going to create two agent types using the man 1 FBX and then woman 1 FBX. And then I'm going to use all the other FBXs as just variations. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to clean the scene. I'm going to, first of all, I'm going to create the variations. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open the Reallusion Character Creator Variation Builder. I'm going to provide a variation JSON there. So basically this is the JSON that will contain all our variation definitions. So variations. If you have already exported a variation file, you can use the merge variation file option. In this case, it's going to be brand new, so it's okay. Let's call it woman R for Reallusion and then woman. And then I'm going to go here. I'm going to say I want these to be my variations. Then I'm going to create a new agent type, which is basically going to be a Reallusion man. I'm going to add all the FBXs for the man. And then when you click build, this basically will build the variation table and it will export all the geometries with these FBXs. We have done this process because basically when you export Arnold materials, you need to have the name of the materials, of the nodes inside the material to be unique. All these FBXs actually have the materials with the same name, and also the nodes are with the same name of the materials. So this process just makes sure that all your geometries have unique names, and the same thing happens for the material nodes. So this takes a while, so I'm just gonna press build and let it go. Now that we have done the variations, I can import my FBX for the agent types. So I'm gonna select man1 and woman1, and I'm gonna change the name to rman and rwoman. These are actually the names that we used earlier for the variations. If you make a mistake and you put like a typo here and use different names, you can still change them later. I'm gonna go in Atoms UI. I'm gonna make sure that the viewport is not visible for the problem that I told you earlier. I'm gonna assign the main local state machine to both agent types, because then later we're gonna use the retargeting with all the agents that have these two agent types. So now I'm going to, actually first I'm gonna create a plane that I'm gonna make it quite big. I'm gonna create an agent group with a grid layout and a clip reader for now. Actually, let's just create a grid layout for now. I want to make it so that it's 2x4, and I'm going to set the space to 100 and 100, the random space to 30 and 20. And here what I want to do is I want to have like the front row to be my woman, and then I want the back row to be the man. That, let me hide for a second this plane. And if I go back to the agent group and I change the display type to skin, now we see basically the skin geometry. And as you can see, basically it's the same for all the agents, but now we can use also the variations. So I'm gonna import the variations, import variation JSON, and I'm gonna import the variations that I created earlier, and I want to assign them to my agents, so with the variation randomizer. And I'm gonna use a very high value for the distance. So this to make sure that basically this makes sure that agents that are closer than this distance don't share the same variation. Let me select agent group. That's done. And if I go in variation mode, I should have my variations exactly. Okay, so now I want to pose these characters. I'm gonna use some files that I've exported from character creator. So some poses that I have there, that I had there. So I'm going to import these poses here. I'm gonna drag and drop them in the Atoms UI. And this is gonna register all these poses as animation clips for my agents so that I can use them. Okay. So I have to make some changes to all of these clips. So basically the loop blend should be 0 because we don't have any, we have just one frame because this is a static pose. So we shouldn't have any blending. And I'm going to set the direction to static, and I'm going to use the Z axis because basically all the poses that I exported from character creator, they were facing the Z axis. So now I'm going to click register. And now, because I want to actually pose in a very specific way the characters here, I'm going to use a clip reader. Otherwise, I could have just used a state machine, create the state, put all the poses there, and then let Atoms do the randomizations for the poses on my characters. But in this specific case, I really want to make sure that they have the pose that I want. Of course, if you don't know the name, you can always open this basically menu here, and you'll see all the available clips. So now my characters are posed, and I'm going to make the plane a bit bigger. I'm also gonna load Arnold. So I'm gonna create a sky dome. What I want to do here is also I want to fill the shot a little bit more. So I'm going to create another agent group, the grid layout, and a state machine. I'm going to set the state to 1, which is the walk state. I'm going to make this of maybe I'm going to make like 20 by 20. And I want to use the character creator agent types. So I'm gonna use the agent randomizer. I'm gonna select both agent types and I'm gonna click run. And in this case, I want to make sure that they are on the ground. So basically the poses are exported from Reallusion. They were already above the XZ plane, but the default clips that are shipped with Atoms, they're not. So I'm going to need to use an I field that I'm gonna assign it to my state machine here. So here we are. And then I want also to make sure that we have some variations here again. So I'm gonna use the same variations. We'll see the same characters actually being replicated into this in this crowd here, but we don't really care for the moment. So I'm gonna show the variations, so they're all there. And now I'm going to make a decent shot, something like that. Yeah. And I'm going to make sure that Arnold is my default renderer. And now I'm gonna click render. And this is just one of the ways in which you can render with Atoms. Another way is also to export your simulation as a cache and then bring it back as an Atoms proxy. And with the Atoms proxy, you'll also be able to render with motion blur, because with the standard agent groups, you're not able to render with motion blur. Another thing is you might have noticed that we use the state machine for the agent group, which is in the back of the shot. The state machine, we set it up previously on the agent type, so you notice that we use the main local state machine. And for each character creator character that we import into Atoms, we actually create a characterization that then lets you retarget our own animations, so even the ones that you can find on our website from our agent bundle on character creator characters. And in this way you can use our animations without making any extra setup.